Good morning. I gotta flip back a few pages. So, in tomorrow's video, you'll hear me talking about an announcement I said I was going to talk about in this video. It didn't happen, and that won't be in this video. Long story short, the recording for 18, when I listened back to the audio, was really broken and super roboty. That's been an issue with my mic recently, but super easy to fix. The other two videos recorded just fine. It was just that first one. So we are re-recording Wisdom of Sirach 18. And I'm Joshua Pearsall with Practical Christian Lessons. If I didn't introduce myself, nice to meet you. And let's get into it. He who lives forever created everything. The Lord alone will be declared righteous, and he permitted no one to proclaim his works. For who can trace out his mighty works? Who will measure his majestic power with a number? And who will add to his measure while describing his mercies? There is no one who can add or subtract, and there is no one who can search out the wonders of the Lord. When a man completes his search, then he starts over, and when he stops, he will still be perplexed. What is man, and what use is he? What is his good, and what is his evil? The number of a man's great days is considered. If he is 100 years old, but like a drop of water from the sea and a grain of sand, so are a few years within a day of eternity. Therefore the Lord is patient with them. He pours out his mercy upon them. He sees and knows their end, and that it is evil. Therefore he makes full atonement for them. The mercy of a man is upon his neighbor, but the mercy of the Lord is upon all flesh, rebuking, training, and teaching them, like a shepherd who returns his flock to the fold. He has mercy on those who receive his discipline and who are eager for his judgments. My son, do not bring disgrace on the good you have done, nor cause grief by your words when you make a gift. Does not dew give relief from the burning heat? In the same way, a word is better than a gift. Indeed, it is not a word better than a fitting gift. And both are found in a gracious man. A fool will insult and disgrace someone, and the gift of an envious man makes his eyes waste away. Before you speak, learn, and before you get sick, take care of your health. Before you make a judgment, examine yourself closely, and in the hour of visitation you will find atonement. Before you become sick, humble yourself, and at the time of sinning, prove your conversion. Let nothing hinder you from paying a vow promptly, and do not wait until death to become righteous. Before you make a vow, prepare yourself, and do not become like a man who tempts the Lord. Remember his anger on the day of your death, at the time of vengeance, when he turns his face away. Remember the time of hunger in the times of plenty, and poverty in need in the days of wealth. From morning until evening time changes, and all things are soon in the presence of the Lord. A wise man will have the fear of God in everything he does, and in these days of sin he will guard against wrongdoing. Every intelligent man knows wisdom, and praises the one who finds her. The wise in words, they also make others wise, and they pour forth accurate proverbs. Do not walk after your own desires, but restrain your appetites. If you fill your soul with a desire for pleasure, it will make you the laughingstock of your enemies. Do not rejoice in great luxury, lest you become needy by its expense. Do not become a beggar by feasting or borrowed money when you have nothing in your purse. And that is Wisdom of Sirach 18. Sorry, I just need a drink there. Luckily I have my reflections already because I've recorded this video. I do just want to touch again on what the Apocrypha is. I like to do that periodically throughout the series. Skip forward, 30 seconds, if you don't want to hear this. Is that the Apocrypha is not scripture. We are not reading it as scripture. There may be debates on its status and canons, but that's been a debate since the earliest days of the church, as far back as we can go in written writing, and presumably, before debates that often end up the first time on paper, normally had, at least in antiquity, a place before they got put down on paper. So, just hasn't been settled. It wasn't until the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation that there was any set canon. The Protestants actually had their canon settled before the Roman Catholics in the Council of Trent, notably later, which is just an interesting piece of history. But even then you get varying views on canon versus open canon and the exact status of books in Protestantism and Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. So we're not there is no consensus here. That's my long and short of it, no matter what people like to claim. My second thing I want to get into is this first little section of Proverbs. I had my about of it being interested in Eastern Orthodoxy. I was looking at becoming a catechumen. the church I was going to do that at, actually, where I was going to go and inquire there into the catechesis process, what actually closed down during COVID, which I'm actually really sad they closed down, even though I probably wouldn't have ended up Eastern Orthodox. It's always sad to see a church close. And if you guys don't want to know why I'm not Eastern Orthodox, I do have some big theological disagreements, huge theological disagreements, or I would be Eastern Orthodox. I have an interview with Javier Perdomo on his channel on exactly about that. I give my full thoughts there. So if you want to know more about that, go watch that. But one of the things that attracted me and is one of the things I still really like about Eastern Orthodoxy, and I found in Wesleyan Arminianism, that's why I'm a Methodist, and you find in other churches, even in the Protestant traditions, even if some don't focus on it or don't talk about it very much, you can still find strains of it all throughout, is the deep mystery and eternal infallibility and unknowability of God. Right? That there's no errors, there's no mistakes, but there is no end to where he goes. He is infinite. He is eternal. He goes beyond all. So there will never be an end to pursuing the love and relationship and mystery of God. There will always be more to inquire to. There will always be more to learn. There will always be more to share together. It's just such a beautiful thought. And as I said, you can certainly find that. Like I'm a Methodist because you find a fair amount of that same type of influence. John Wesley was heavily influenced by the Greek fathers in particular. So that Greek strain of thought has made its influence on Methodism. And not just Methodism, you find it in Lutheranism, other places. It's not just us. Just want to make sure I'm not trying to claim to be the only ones with anything. Very rarely in Christendom does anyone have a sole claim to something. Very, very rarely. Generally, when they do, it's not a good thing. The second thing I want to talk about is really reflecting on the Psalms. I do a lot of reading in the Psalms. I love the Psalms. I have a whole lesson series on them on my channel. I need to update that, and I need to I need to do a lot of updates on that lesson. But the Psalms are such a beautiful place to be. And one of those things that really kind of drew me to this is in poverty and need in the days of wealth. Remember the time of hunger and the time of plenty. That can tie into this huge thing of contentment, right? Paul says, learn how to be content in all situations. That's not easy, I'm sure we've all heard it's really easy to pray and be thankful when you're in the good times. It's not very easy to do when you're in the hard times, when your house foreclosed, when it burned down, when you lost your job, when the insurance claim fell through and you have to pay the medical claim out of pocket, when you lose someone you love. There are hard times in the seasons of the soul. There are serious, heart-wrenching moments. And we need to be able to go through those, right? You go through the Psalms, Athanasius, and Martin Luther picked this up later, C.S. Lewis picked this up later, tons of authors in between have picked this up, is that the Psalm contains all the movements of the soul. That if there is a human emotion, if there's a human feeling, you can find it in the Psalms. Pain, anger, heartbreak, all of it. And you should be able to go through the Psalms and pray them and use them in these times of pain. That was in Athanasius' letter to Marcellus. One of the things he talked about is when you are in these seasons, you can use the Psalms to pray through these seasons. Dietrich Bonhoeffer talked about this in two works. He has a little book on the Psalms, and he has a book called Life Together, I think is the name of it. And it's just beautiful. It can help with these seasons of contentment. And if you go through the book of Job, we as the church need to recognize we can say these kinds of extreme things to God, and it's okay. God can handle it. You're not going to say anything to God no one said before. Humanity's been around a while. We're not going to come up with something fresh and new. And we need to be able to lament. We need to be able to express our outrage at injustices, at the wrongs and evils in this world, at the very least, because they need to not be trapped inside us. We have to be able to let them out of us. We can't just bottle them up and hold them in. And we need to trust that we can say it to God, that he can handle it because he can, and that he will then come to us in that time and be our comforter and be our helper and give us the strength that we don't have, that he will help us find contentment even if we are in a time of sorrow during that contentment, that we can find the contentment in the life we have while we still grieve at what is wrong. I think a great modern example of this is A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis. He wrote under a pseudonym, or pseudonym, I never remember, I think it's pseudonym. And he wrote it after his wife died. And it is such a heart-wrenching read. You could probably read the entire book in a day time-wise, if you can emotionally handle doing that. It is just C.S. Lewis writing down his genuine, raw feelings and thoughts about what is going on in his life, about the grief he's feeling, about the feelings it's bringing forth. And he's just letting it out. We ought to be able to do that. It's something super important. I am no stranger to grief, and I can tell you the difference in my life when I just held it inside and didn't tell anyone and let myself just sink further and further into it. And I didn't cry out to God. It was bad. It was a long 10 years of suffering and pain that I never needed to go through. But when I finally learned that I can, in fact, just put it on God, that I can cry out to him. You know, the night before my wedding, we had a death from someone from my old prayer group. And, you know, at the little party the night before, you know, I didn't say anything to anybody. But I went out later and I had my own lament. I cried out to God. I said, God, even in the time of one of my greatest happinesses, why is there this sorrow? Why is there this pain? Why is there this loss? And that was so much release and peace I found in that. If I hadn't done that, you know, the next day at the wedding, maybe it all would have come out at once. I don't know. But it was through trusting that God could handle what I was saying and that God could answer whatever is appropriate as God deems fit. I found a way to be content in that and to be able to go to my wedding the next day and enjoy the wedding. It's my wedding, you know, it's a good day. While still also acknowledging that pain and that sorrow. And that's my encouragement to you guys today, is find a way to express those seasons, those movements of the soul, right? Pray through the Psalms that fit the season, whether it's anger and outrage, crying for justice for what has been done wrong, or crying, God, why now? Why is this happening? Why is there this illness? Why is there this loss? Why is there this pain? Find those things to move you to God in those seasons. You guys have a wonderful day and God bless.